All right, so the brush tool. The brush tool is now selected, and each tool that you select here is going to, in the properties panel, it's going to show you its properties. So it's important to have this properties panel like handy because you want to change the settings for any of the tools that you select. All right, so let's see. As you can see, so you can just start drawing just like that. One option that is here, which is handy, is the smoothing option. It tries to kind of smooth out your strokes. I think by default it's set up to be high. You can just change it back to low. So however this setting might fit your kind of workflow. And if you want to use pen pressure, you can turn this icon on here. One thing I wanted to show you is how to work with selection tools in combination with the brush. So if you go to this selection tool here, you can see that when I move my mouse over next to this stroke, the brush that I have here, brush stroke that I have here, it turns into a curve, like a curve appears next to it, right? So this software, it's a vector-based software. So it means that each stroke that you create, it has like these points, and these are vectors. They're not like in Photoshop and you draw and it's just pixels. When you move them and when you scale them, the resolution of your stroke is going to change because it's just drawn. It's a pixel. It's a raster-based application. Photoshop is a raster-based application, but this one is a vector-based. So each stroke that you draw, it's a vector. And let's see, what does it mean? So it means that, for example, you can see that when I move, let's just click away from it. You can see when it turns out to be like this kind of texture has its dot, it means that it is selected, right? And it's not going to go away until you select away from it, right? Click away from it. So again, I move my mouse next to this stroke and I click on it. So everything is now selected, and that's how I know, right? And you can see this time, because it is selected, when I move my mouse next to the stroke, I can now kind of move it around, right? And this is what this selection tool does. You can just, select the whole stroke and then move it around with it. Let's just click away from it, see what else it does. You can see that it shows me like kind of like a two lines next to its cursor when I click here. So this means if I now click, I can actually move around the points that create this stroke, right? And this might actually be like showing that this is like a conjunction. I'm not sure about that. But you can see that when it shows this curve, I can actually move the points around. And again, if I click on it, everything is selected, I can just move it, right? If you want to see the components of each stroke that you create, you can go to this selection tool, sub-selection tool. So with this one, if you click on the stroke, you can actually see these points and you can kind of manipulate them, not just by moving around, also you're going to have these handles to kind of create different shapes with them, right? Yeah, this way you can only move the components with that. I'm not sure if you can actually kind of move all of them at the same time. Oh, you can. All right. So you can just select that and your cursor turns out to be, you need to just watch the shape that shows up next to the cursor. So I'm thinking maybe, yes, now that it shows like a black square, I'm probably going to be able to move it all around, right? All right. So this is the differences between these two selection tools. And with this one, you can actually, again, select and then move objects. So just be mindful that you first need to probably select it. So I'm just going to click away so it is not selected. So if you need to first click on it so it is selected, then your cursor turns into this familiar icon that you know is for move. So you can just move it, rotate it, and scale it. do whatever you want to do with it, right? So now that we know each stroke is kind of working like this, and it has these components, let's take a second look to the options for the brush. So if you go to the brush mode, so here I'm going to clear my screen now. So to do that, I'm just going to go to the timeline, select the keyframe, and just hit delete on my keyboard so that it has an empty keyframe now. So if you look at your properties here, let's just start with our stroke again. And I'm going to turn down the smoothing because I can see that my computer fan, the fan for my computer is just, doing the crazy thing, and it might be annoying. So I'm just going to turn down the smoothing option. So let's just create these two strokes, and you can see here there's this option here which is important, object drawing mode off. So if you hold your mouse over it, you can see that it says intersecting shapes will merge. So it means that if I create some strokes with this mode and then go to the selection mode and then select this and then move it, like it's just everything is connected because it connected the components of the two strokes when they're intersecting, right? Click away from it. If I go to the brush mode and then check this icon on, you can see now that if I hold my mouse over it, it now says that intersecting shapes will not merge. So if I do this and then do this, well, not such an intersection, but let's just create something like that. All right. So now these two strokes, they look pretty much the same. But now if I go to the selection tool and then click on it, you can see that this part is a separate thing because the option for merging the intersect of the strokes was off when I was drawing. So this is something to be mindful. You kind of need to keep track of it when you're creating drawings in Adobe Animate. Let's see, any other options in the... So you can see that although I'm selecting the brush tool in the properties, it does not show me the brush tool. I just need to click away from it, which creates this dot. Then I hit E to erase that. Go back, B for brush. Now I have my brush tool. One other option that I find to be helpful if you kind of change that is this sync setting with the eraser. So what does it mean? So it means that if I'm drawing something and then I want to switch to eraser, which you can get to by hitting E on the keyboard, and for example, let's say I want a bigger eraser. So I'm just going to change the size of the eraser, right? When I hit B to go to brush, go back to brush, the size of the brush is going to match the size of the eraser. And I think it's, we don't want that most of the times, right? So to get rid of that, in the brush setting, uncheck this sync setting with eraser. And do the same thing for the eraser. So I've already did that, but I think the default is that they're checked off. So check this one off. Erase an active layer. You can use this option as well. There are lots of things here to explore. So now if I change the brush size, which you can do by holding down Shift and then the brackets, right and left brackets. Oops. Do I need to first draw? Yes, that's annoying. You can see I'm just doing, well, you don't see, but I'm telling you that I'm doing Shift and then left bracket, so it kind of reduces the size. Or you can just use this size option here, right? So now if I draw something and then move back to stroke, you can to erase it, you can see that the eraser has its own size, and then if I go back to brush, brush has its own thing, right?